Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to look at the last of the Clash packs, finish off that section of obscure cardboard. We're going to look at this one which was released for Magic Origins and as with all the other Clash packs contains two decks, so it was a two-player product that you intend to pick up maybe with a friend, play the decks against each other, kind of learn Magic that way, I guess, and then kind of mash the two decks together with a bit of guidance from the product. Probably had a little leaflet or something in it to make a deck that was kind of like a bit more competitive, I would say. But whether it or not it works out that way is up for debate, really. So this one was released for Magic Origins. So one of the decks is predominantly focused on Magic Origins, and the other deck is more using like the like Karn's block cards that had sort of like just been released, or the previous set. So there's a lot of overlap between these decks, as you might expect, because they were intended to be kind of mashed together, the best bits of it. But yeah, they're both of all the Clash packs we've looked at. This is the one where it's like this is, I feel like, the most like there's the fewest differences between the two. Like this is where they're the most similar, I think. But yeah, we'll get into it. So the first deck is Armed, which is white-green. This is the one that's focused more around the Magic Origins card, so 19 creatures, 11 instants, 2 sorceries, 2 enchantments, and 26 lands. You might notice one of the lands, which is probably why I think this might have flown off the shelves, actually, but we'll get into it. So so this is the deck that's using mostly Magic Origins cards, and because it's white-green, it's kind of leaning into the white-green cards in Magic Origins, which are all about Renown, which was this mechanic I've covered before when we looked at the Magic Origins precons. This is like the period in Magic's history where basically green-white had just cared about +1/+1 counter mechanics for about 2 years, because we'd had Heroic and Theros, we'd had Outlast and Bolster in Karn's Tarkir. Now we got Renown in Origins, and then in Battle for Zendikar that was coming up, we were going to get support as well. So it's basically just a solid 2 years of various +1/+1 counter mechanics. Anyway, let's look at it. So the foil face rate is Honored Hierarch. So 1 green mana for 1/1 has Renown 1. Renown is if the creature's not renowned and it manages to sneak through and do combat damage to player, it becomes renowned and it gets a certain number of counters, and it is now renowned, and it might have certain bonuses if it is renowned. For example, the Hierarch, when it's renowned, it gets Vigilance and can tap for mana. So I won't, like with all the other Clash packs, I won't spend too long talking about the individual cards. We'll kind of zip through because we've got 2 decks to cover. But yeah, the deck just has a huge Renown focus, basically. It's using pretty much every green and white Renown creature, with some notable exceptions, I think. But anyway, we'll get through it. So we've got an Outland Colossus, which is just 5 mana 6/6 with Renown 6 and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So yeah, just a big beat stick. Single Kytheon's Irregulars, 2 and double white for a 4/3 with Renown, and has a ability where you pay double white to tap a creature. Yep, these are just fairly okayish creatures. Single Consul's Lieutenant, double white for a 2/1 with first strike and Renown, and when it's renowned and it attacks, gives all your attacking creatures +1/+1 turn. One of the few renowned cards that was not in the Magic Origins precon that cared all about renowned cards, so it was nice it showed up here, I suppose. And then 2 Topaz Free Blades and 2 War Oracles. These are just very straightforward. Like they've just basically got a keyword and renown. So yeah, they're very sort of straightforward. Undercity Troll again just has renown ability and then regenerate. So again, very very straightforward. So 2 Valeron Wardens, or Valeron, whatever. So 2 in a green for a 1/3 with renown 2. Whenever a creature you control becomes renowned, draw a card. And I think I sort of covered this a bit when I looked at the renowned precon from Origins, but like I just don't think like there was enough payoffs for stuff becoming renowned. I think there was like this, and there was like a white combat trick, which like if you used it on a creature that was renowned, it got like an extra bonus. And I guess you've got the Consul's Lieutenant, but that's just essentially gaining an extra ability when it gets renowned. This is just like paying you off for like having a bunch of renowned creatures. So it's nice there's at least 2 of them in here. But yeah, I do think Magic Origins would have benefited from having like maybe just, I don't know, even like just a white card, has renown, and like, oh, when a creature you control becomes renowned, you like gain some life, or any, something like that. It's just, I don't know, it seems like a really obvious kind of synergy to have, I suppose. But I guess it's like limited set size or whatever. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about renown too much. And then 2 Citadel Castellan, 1 a green and white for a 2/3 with Vigilance and Renown. So all these renowned creatures, pretty straightforward, honestly. And then we sort of like take a hard veer into just using some some older cards here from Khan's block. So we've got Seeker of the Way with nice alternate art. So 1 white for a 2/2 with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Seeker of the Way gains lifelink 10/10. Pretty solid, I think, actually, to have prowess and getting lifelink as well. So you play 1 non-creature spell, it becomes a 3/3 with lifelink, which is not bad for obviously 2 mana. This is okay, and it's obviously got nice alternate art as well. Single Anointer of Champions, 1 white mana for a 1/1 that gives attacking creatures +1/+1 10/10. Sure, absolutely fine for a 1-drop to have this ability. A Dragon Bell Monk, just with Vigilance and Prowess. Yep. Yep, that's fine. And then we got a Dragon Hunter, so 1 white mana for a 2/1 with protection from dragons and can block dragons as though it had reach. If you're playing these decks against each other, this does not have much to do. But I mean, it is like a 2/1 for 1 with obviously with technically upside, I suppose. But yeah, there is like 1 dragon in the other deck. So yeah, this is probably be an easy cut if you were mashing them together. And then a single Dromica Warrior, which is just a 3/1 for 2, so whatever. And then this is like one of the other cards actually in the deck that would have been a bit of a draw, I think, bit of maybe a marketing thing, is Collected Company, which still goes, I think, for a fair amount of money because it's, honestly, because it's pretty good. So 4 mana instant, I think it's the instant speed that actually really, really makes it very good, honestly. So 4 mana, look at the top 6 cards of your library, put up to 2 creature cards with mana value 3 or less from amongst them onto the battlefield, and the rest go on the bottom of your library in any order. So digging for 6 is pretty good. And then instantly dropping 2 creatures. I mean, obviously smallish, cheap creatures, but like it's still 2 creatures at instant speed. You're only spending 1 card. Do that, you're getting a lot of selection out of it. Yeah, so this is a really, really nice inclusion in the deck. It can hit like a bunch of creatures in the deck because you're mostly playing like smallish creatures which have renown. Yeah, so this is like a really, really great card to include. And yeah, this was like a really popular card at the time, and as I said, still is. So this is probably would have guaranteed this, made this deck might have been kind of hard to find, because I imagine maybe competitive players would have. I mean, depending how much the Origins, depending how much the Clash pack cost, might have been easier to pick this up and get like a guaranteed one, and especially seeing what some of the other cards in the deck in the product are. To get this, and then obviously a bunch of other stuff, which is like some of these other cards, and to get them are like, it's not terrible, but yeah, really, really good, really high value card to have in here. And then we've got a moving on to other non-creature spells. So we've got a single Dromica's command, green and white, and it's like all commands. So it has 4 options. You choose 2 of them. So these I'm gonna just say these dragon commands from Khan's. I do like them. But they always feel weird to me because like the original sort of set of commands we got back in Lorwyn were kind of expensive. They were about, I think, like 4 mana was the cheaper one. Cryptic Command, that was the cheapest, and yeah, obviously had like big effects. And like I don't know, like something about like these dragon commands, like coming from like these dragon lords, like flavorfully to being like cheap and having small effects, like doesn't feel great to me. Like I know obviously making them cheaper makes them more, I guess, viable, but I know I wouldn't have been sad if these had cost sort of like 2 or 3 more and had like bigger effects. I would have felt that would have been more like impressive and I don't know, more thematic, I suppose. But as it is, let's look at it. So out of the 4 options, you've got prevent all damage, an instant or sorcery we deal this turn. A player sacrifices an enchantment. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or a creature you control fights a creature you don't control. So those are all like okay, like fairly good effects. I think most of the time you'd be doing the +1/+1 counter and the fight, because for 2 mana instant speed, that's pretty good. And then the other 2 effects, obviously, like a bit more niche, I would say. But like this is still okay. Like for 2 mana, obviously, like +1/+1 counter and an instant speed fight effect. Those are both fine. As I do wish they were maybe a little bit more expensive and like slightly bigger effects. That would have felt more, I know, more impressive and thematic to me. Anyway, I'd love to know if people agree with that. Single Valorous Stance, again with lovely new artwork. So 1 white, you choose 1, a creature gets indestructible end to turn, or you destroy a creature's toughness 4 or greater. Yep, sure. 2 Enshrouding Mist, this is the white combat trick I was talking about that cares about renown. So 1 white mana, gives a creature +1/+1 until intent, and you prevent all damage to it, and if it is renowned, it gets untapped. So yeah, very minimal upside for on a renowned creature. Then a bunch of kind of like just combat tricks, I suppose. 2 Mighty Leaps, single Feat Resistance. Feat Resistance is actually fantastic. I think it's really, really good for a common combat trick like protection, instant speed, and a +1/+1 counter is really, really good, I think. And then a single Pressure Point where you just tap a creature and you draw a card, like for 2 mana. I guess it's fine, I guess, but stuff like this never feels like worth a card to me. I suppose it replaces itself, it is draw a card, but yeah, I don't know. Just what I think would have preferred more Feat Resistances. And then two pacifisms, we all know what pacifism does. Two epic confrontations for a bit of like removal, it's a fight effect. And then two titanic growth, so just a kind of like a decent-ish collection of sort of like combat tricks, I suppose. Right, and then here's like the real money card, I think, in the deck. Windswept Heath, so terramorphic expense, as I like to call these fetch lands. So, like, obviously, these are super popular with the competitive crowd because it's a fetch land, and fetch lands are always super sought after because they let you smooth your mana curve like really quickly. They thin your deck. They do a whole bunch of stuff which a casual scrub like me acknowledges, but like I don't condone them, especially at the time when these were kind of, because this was like when they'd just been reprinted, because they were originally back in like Onslaught block, I think. So this is the first time they got reprinted, and they were going for like sort of like 20-25 pounds each as singles, and like at the time, I was sort of like dabbling in lots of different hobbies at the time, so could never ever justify getting fetch land. So I suppose it's just jealousy. We'll put it down to that. But yeah, putting it in pre-constructed prod like this is kind of nuts, and I wonder if it was like kind of like with the collected company. I wonder if this resulted in kind of a rat's nest situation where people would just probably buy this. I imagine the Clash Pack probably wouldn't have been either the same price or much more expensive than just buying one of these singly. And then you keep the best bits and then just like resell the rest, or if you're really desperate, you just take out this one card and dump the rest. Yeah. So really crazy that a fetch land is included in a pre-constructed product. Yeah. So if you did actually, if you were trying to get this product back in the day and you just couldn't find it anywhere, like please let me know, because I was kind of in and out of the game at this point. I wasn't keeping up whether or not this was like a rat's nest situation, so it would be interesting to know that for certain. And then we got two Blossoming Sands, which is like the normal white green gain land, and then two Evolving Wilds for the budget the budget version of Windswept Heath, I suppose. And then 11 plains and 10 forests. So that deck's kind of okay, I suppose. Like obviously big focus on +1/+1 counters. Obviously like green white kind of weenies because you got the collected company and the other stuff like that. So now we'll look at dangerous, which is the in the Abzan colors. So we've got 18 creatures, 6 sorceries, 5 enchantments, 5 instants, 26 land. We've got a mana curve off to the side here. So this is using one of the other like +1/+1 counter mechanics that green white had access to during this time. So the foil face rate is Dromoka the Eternal. So 3 green and white for 5/5 with flying. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, bolster 2. Dromoka I think is the only dragon in the deck, so I think it's a really bad choice, honestly, for foil face rare. I mean, like, it is obviously like you still get its effect when it attacks, but like this like even just having like 1 or 2 extra dragons in here I think would really pay off. But I mean it's still 5/5 flyer for 5 obviously, and it is still like whenever it attacks you're giving something 2 +1/+1 counters. Like it's still obviously fine, but like it's just a shame there's no other dragons in here to get that trigger as well. And then we got a single Siege Rhino, which was, again, I think like kind of a money card at the time because it was just all over the place from what I remember all reading about back in the day. Siege Rhino was just in a bunch of decks at the time because it was, for 4 mana, admittedly in 3 colors. It provides a lot of value. It's like a 4/5 with trample. It does like a 3-point life swing when it enters the battlefield. So yeah, again, another kind of like big-ish money card to include in the product. And then we got Anafenza Kintry Spirit, so double white for a 2/2. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, you bolster 1. So bolstering is, I didn't cover it with Dromoka there, is you choose a creature which has the less toughness amongst creatures you control, and you get a +1/+1 counter on it, so you just buff up your weakest creature, and eventually they won't be your weakest creature because they'll be getting all the +1/+1 counters on it. And it's okay, basically, bolster. Like, I think it gets refined a little bit in Battle for Zendikar when we get support, which is just, essentially, you just distribute counters however you want, whereas this, you haven't got as much control. It just goes on the weakest thing. We've got a single Avatar of the Resolute as one of the other rares. This is actually really solid, I think. So double green for a 3/2 with Reach and Trample on its own, I think is fairly solid anyway. But it then enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for every other creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it. Which, considering, I mean, this could actually go in either of the decks and it would have been fine. Considering, both these decks have such a huge focus on +1/+1 counters, this can be really big for only 2 green mana. So yeah, I think it's a really good inclusion in here. Single elite scale guard, bolsters 2 when it comes in, and whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter attacks, you tap target creature defending player controls to turns all your stuff with +1/+1 counters on it into seasoned marshals. 3 light walkers, 2 mana for a 2/1. It has flying as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. Sure, it has nice low toughness actually, which means it's going to be a viable bolster target most of the time. And then a whole bunch of Outlast cards from Khans. So Anot Bonkin, Abzan Falconer, Abzan Battle Priest. They all have Outlast and basically all give keyword abilities to your stuff with +1/+1 counters. I like all of these. I've played a kind of a janky white-green heroic deck in the past, or using +1/+1 counters, using all of these, and they are all great. The Falconer and the Battle Priest, especially, I think are fantastic. So yeah, these are all great. I like all of these. But then we got some of the green Outlast kind of ones as well. The Longshot Squad and Tuskar Captain, this is just more of the same. Just gives stuff with +1/+1 counters on it, keywords, so either reach or trample. Again, these are fine. And then Disowned Ancestor, which is a black Outlast creature. It doesn't give or gain any keywords. It's just big. It's just really tough. So that's fine. And Merrick Nightblade is like one of the other like keyword lords that gives Death Touch everything with a +1/+1 counter it. So again, like these are all fine. Like having all these kind of like Outlast creatures mixed in with all the bolsters. So yeah, it's all fine. So then moving to non-creature spells. So we've got a single Abzan Ascendancy, so white, black, and green. When it ends the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, which is actually really nice for only 3 mana. I mean, it is 3 mana in different colours and at sorcery speed, but like it's still okay, I suppose. And whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you make a spirit token, which is again like absolutely fine. This is just a really solid enchantment. I think the real spicy thing though is Citadel Siege. This is really, really nice. So 2 and double white. When it ends the battlefield, you choose either Khans or Dragons, which is a fantastic bit of rules text. You choose Khans at the beginning of combat in your turn. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature control, which is absolutely nuts. And Dragons is at the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn. You tap a creature that player controls. Both those are very good. Like all these siege enchantments are really, really good, I think. I think of the two, you'd be picking the Khan's side of it to just keep getting +1/+1 counters because you've got so many things that like care about +1/+1 counters or want them down. So yeah, but I mean that dragon side is also pretty useful as well, I think. Single scale blessing, you bolster 1, then you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it. So yeah, this is okay. Just obviously, so much of your stuff has ways of getting counters on it already. So this is just getting extra ones all round. So yeah, and it's at instant speed as well, which is quite nice. So potentially get a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters at instant speed. Then a whole bunch of things that just add counters. Dromica's gifts, cash defenses, incremental growth. These all just give like +1/+1 counters in various ways. So either bolster 4, bolster 3, or like the 3-2-1 distribution of them. So yeah, this just ways of getting counters onto stuff. And then Map the Waste, which is just a ramp spell, which has bolster on it as well, which is like not terrible, I suppose. So that's nice in here. Would have liked more just because it is a triple color deck, so it would have been nice to have 3 of them, or even maybe a full playset. But I think it's okay as is. Single Ancestral Vengeance, an aura goes on a creature. When it ends the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, and the enchanted creature gets -1. Enchanted creature gets -1/-1. So it's fine, I suppose. It's pretty weak actually. I was going to say it's fine. It's not. It's pretty weak. I'd take this out honestly. And then a debilitating injury, which is just 2 mana aura, goes on a creature, gives it -2/-2. Fine, kills an X2, makes a bigger creature weaker. It's okay. I would have preferred, I think, just more straightforward removal. Like Ultimate Price, which is just 2 and destroys a mono-coloured creature. Which, during Khan's block, kind of not wonderful because there was a lot of multicolored going around, But as it's starting to go into Battle for Zendikar now, so this would become like a bit more useful, I suppose. But yeah, would have liked more of this, like more just straightforward, like Doomblade type removal. And a single suspension field, which is just like O-ring, but like for only weak things. So I suppose, sure. Yeah, again, I think would have preferred just a normal kind of like banishing light or whatever, if that was available at the time. I'm not sure if it was actually. And then land, so we got Sandstep Citadel, which is the Abzan Tri-land, with again like new artwork here for the Clashback. And then 2 each of the gain lands. So actually there's a lot of lands coming in tapped, which is not wonderful, I don't think. but it is what it is, I suppose, when you're playing 3 colors. And yeah, the other deck's got the fetch land. This is the one that I think that actually needed the fetch land or the terramorphic expanse or whatever. But it is what it is. And then 7 plains, 6 forests, and 6 swamps. So there we go. So this is the final combined deck list, how it recommends them mashing together. Obviously, there's like so much overlap in, like so many of the cards in both decks like care about +1/+1 counters. So this is like the suggested one, which I think is using basically all like the renowned creatures. It's using all the cards, all the rare cards. So it does end up being 3 colors. And yeah, I think it's just using the best of the +1/+1 counter cards. Well, actually, I say that, and you got Dromoka Warrior and Dragon Hunter in like the main deck. I would have made them like sideboard, left them out. Would have kept in the Abzan Falconer stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know. I think there was like, unlike the other Clash packs we looked at, I think this one has like got so many ways, because like the decks share 2 colors. I think you got so many ways of combining them into a way that would have, that you would have liked. You could have definitely tinkered with a lot more than I think the other 2 decks would have. Personally, I say, because there's so much overlap between what they're both doing and caring about +1/+1 counters in some way. But yeah, so that was the final Clashback and the one for Magic Origins. I'd love to know what people think about this one. I think the inclusion of like the money res of the Jewel Land Collected Company and like some other like decent cards in there, I say like Siege Rhino. I'm sure there was another one that I can't think of, but those are the big 3 that I can remember. Yeah, I'd be really interested to know if this was like a rat's nest situation where this was just flying off shelves because people were getting it to get like a guaranteed fetch land. But yeah, and beyond that, I'd like to know obviously what you think about it as a product entirely. Like, would you have like? Do you think you would have had fun like picking this up and playing the 2 decks against each other? Do you think like the combined deck is like okay, or like would you take it in a different way, or use different cards in some way? I'd just like to know what people think about this deck, and I'd say just the Clash packs in general, because I've said it before, I do generally think they were like a pretty good idea in theory, but like in execution maybe like a little bit clumsy, maybe. There's definitely, I think, room for improvement, but this was the last one, so I guess, I don't know, they weren't doing that well, like they weren't market testing well enough. But it's a shame, because I do think it's like I do think it's a good idea for a product. Anyway, did my whole "what do you think" ramble on that screen there. So yeah, that was the Clashbacks. So say if you got any comments about them, stick them downstairs, and I'll give them a read. But we're now done with this kind of section of Obscure Cardboard. There is one more product that I would like to cover for Obscure Cardboard before we get into before I finally stop leading you on and actually do dual decks properly. We're going to do one more, I think, Obscure Cardboard product. So I hope you join me for that and watch the video for that. But until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.